Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. John Kelly, profiler here, and welcome. Today, we're going to be answering some of your questions. You guys have sent a lot of comments in. You've asked a lot of questions about how I ended up doing what I'm doing. And so I think the best way to handle this is through an interview. I'm going to be interviewed today on the various questions that you guys want answered about my story. Thank you so much, and here we go.
John, can you tell me about your various media experiences?
A lot of my media experiences took place, first of all, in different newspapers, and then it moved on to television. And, pretty much I've been on a lot of TV shows, or a good amount of TV shows. And pretty much if you see me on TV, it's usually about murder and mayhem. I'm very pleased that the times I was invited on to 48 Hours, they did 3 hours. We did some Dark Mind shows. I think we did about 22 Dark Mind shows. I did Geraldo, I did Nancy Grace. I've been on a lot of television shows, a lot of internet recently. But that pretty much sums up my media appearances.
John, did you work for the FBI?
That's a great question because we get so many comments, people asking, John, did you work for the FBI? Or John, are you retired from the FBI? The answer to both of those questions is no. I never worked for the FBI, and obviously I'm not retired from the FBI. Do we consult with the FBI? Absolutely. If we get tips coming across our website and they're supposed to go to the FBI, they go over to the FBI as well. All right. Most notably for me, when you ask me that question, is the consulting that we did with the FBI on the anthrax murderer, the anthrax killer, back in 2001. And that's probably the most notable case because we were right there in the thick of it in that part of Jersey, and the anthrax letters were being mailed out from around the Princeton area, and very, very too close for comfort for us. We had to even disinfect the mail to make sure there was no anthrax spores in it, and the way we did that was put it in a microwave, kill any anthrax that might be in there. But we had mail catch on fire, so it's a case that I remember very well.
Tell me about the first time you were published in a national magazine.
Well, the first time I was published in a national magazine was probably back in 1987, and that was in U.S. News or World Report magazine. It was called Who's Cool Today and Who Isn't? On the lure of the drug culture in the United States. I was working at the hospital at that point in time. My odyssey or journey to the hospital came from my involvement early on in my life, being involved with illegal gambling and being a cocaine addict, which really devastated me, brought me to my knees. And at that point in time, I went to work on myself. Got into recovery. After getting into recovery and working on myself, I wanted to pursue it. I wanted to find out what made me so self-destructive. Why did I become so addicted? And, not only did I work on myself, but after I got done working on myself, I started to do volunteer work. I got into the field of addictive illness. I started doing an internship at a major hospital in New Jersey. And during that time, that's when I wrote that piece, and it was published in U.S. News and World Report magazine.
How did you end up writing the theory, low self-esteem, the beginning of addiction?
Well, I wrote Low Self-Esteem, the beginning of addiction from just doing interviews and evaluating many people suffering from substance abuse and addictive illness. And it seemed the one common denominator that was always there was that these people were very, very critical of themselves. They had a really harsh internal critic, made up of all these different cognitive distortions, which become thought distortions, and you get your feelings from your thoughts. And it seemed that there was always a lot of insecurity, inadequacy, and inferiority that went along with this addictive illness. So, I realized, okay, this is the common denominator that needs to be talked about. Now, also, there's other parts to this too that are genetic, and we also have double trouble here. We have, a person who's doing drugs that can be duly diagnosed with a mental disorder as well. But, I really felt that low self-esteem is, for the most part, the beginning of addictive illness.
So, how did this theory lead into your book, Warning Signs, a guidebook for parents?
Well, this led into Warning Signs, a guidebook for parents, because through interviewing all the people that I was honored to interview suffering from addictive illness, I just felt that it was something that had to be out there, and obviously Regnery Publishing felt that it had to be out there too, and they thought it was a really great book. They purchased the book, and then they put it out, and that was all the way back in 2002. But it was pretty much focused on helping families identify their kids at risk through identifying low self-esteem early on before it progressed into self-destructive behavior.
Tell me about ExtraCare Health Services.
Oh, ExtraCare Health Services was my baby. I was the executive director of ExtraCare Health Services for approximately 28 years, maybe a little bit more. Great outpatient counseling center, great clinical team. I couldn't be more thankful and honored to work with the people there that I worked with. I couldn't be more honored to have worked with all the clients there that I've worked with. We were a completely individualized program. And when I say individualized, I mean really individualized. I mean, nobody has the same fingerprints, nobody has the same DNA. Why would everybody be treated exactly just one way? I mean, you don't treat cancer just one way, you don't treat diabetes just one way. I mean, you don't treat any other disease one way. Why would you treat addictive illness one way? So we brought it down to the nth degree, okay, to work with people was that individualized. We had unbelievable success. I believe it was the best treatment center, outpatient treatment center in New Jersey, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. It was a wonderful experience.
John, tell me what led you into profiling and writing your theory on serial killing being an addiction.
I'll tell you, that's a great question because as I was moving along, I was focused on low self-esteem and building confidence in people and helping them with, their insecure feelings. And somewhere along the line, I read a book. I think we were on vacation. I read a book on this serial killer. And, I realized that this serial killer was involved with alcohol and other drugs. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, really? So I started to do more research, and then I found an abundance of serial killers who were growing up in really abusive families. A good majority of our clients that we saw at ExtraCare Health Services were abused. So, I started putting two and two together, and it just made me more inquisitive about and curious about what was going on, and it led me to find out about Bundy's alcohol problem, Manson's alcohol problem, the abuse in Manson's family, the neglect in Bundy's family, the alcohol abuse in Dahmer. I mean, it just took me from one to another. the substance abuse involved in John Gacy's life. So it really it got me interested. And as I got interested, what really grabbed me was that each serial killer, if you broke it down to victims, and you broke it down how many victims each serial killer averaged, it came out to about 40 victims per serial killer. Now, not every serial killer killed 40 victims, but some serial killers killed 50 or more. Gary Ridgway, Green River Killer, and some serial killers killed less, like Henry Lee Lucas, who was also alcoholic. I think they convicted him of 11 or 12, counting his mother. But then you had various medical professionals who, were serial killers who killed hundreds of patients who became their victims. So when you boiled it all down to the nth degree, some who killed less, some who killed more, it averaged out to about 40 victims. And, I'm looking at this and saying to myself, well, I think this is an addiction. And that's when I wrote the paper and I proved it, because the same low self-esteem that I was seeing in clients that were suffering from addictive illness, there was no question about it. When I interviewed serial killers, the more I read about serial killers, they didn't have low self-esteem. They had no self-esteem. And that's what really drove me into profiling, because I felt I was doing a bigger service at the time, because, it wasn't just one person possibly overdosing from various drugs. We had somebody that was addicted to killing and who was averaging 40 victims, okay? So I felt, with my background, with my psychotherapy experience, being trained by some of the best doctors around, that we could put together a team, which we did, Stock Incorporated, that could really add something to the already behavioral and psychological profile that was out there, by adding an addiction component to that psychological and behavioral profile. Do a better job, try and get these guys sooner than later, get them off the street, and bring attention to the major precursor of serial murder, which is child abuse. So that's how I moved into profile.
Tell me about your new channel, Thrive.
Well, the reason I decided to put Thrive together is because I've retired from ExtraCare Health Services. I'm still active with Stock Incorporated and still involved with the profiling team and law enforcement. But I'm really focused on and passionate about Thrive, and still focusing on addictive illness, because as I left addictive illness to go into the profiling, because there was a larger victim pool, guess what? Fast forward to now, and you have even a bigger victim pool, because we've had over 40, 50,000 people die of overdoses, per year in the last couple of years. I think it's down now. But my God, we have more younger people dying from overdoses now than we do from serial killers or from car accidents. I think it was even reported last year that more people died of the year before from addictive illness than they did from car accidents. So what I have to focus on is, putting the information I have and my expertise out there, so, maybe it can help somebody. And I really believe it can. I really believe it's just going to grow. We have got to confront this addictive illness. It's a national health emergency, and we just can't sit back. We have to deal with the stigma. We've got to get rid of the stigma. Okay, it's a disease. I'll say that 3 times. It's a disease. It's a disease. It is, okay? So we have to focus on dealing with it any which way we can. And I think the best way to do it for me right now is through the internet.
Tell me about your new book, Discovering Lazarus.
My new book, Discovering Lazarus, is going to be focused on my recovery from a very destructive, addictive illness. And it's going to be pretty much detailing some of the stuff we've gone over today, only in a more comprehensive way. And it's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly story of John Kelly Profiler. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching my video. I really appreciate it. If you have addictive illness haunting your family somewhere, please feel free to check out Thrive. We're trying to get it off the ground. But right now, I just want to thank you for all your subscriptions. I want to thank you for all your comments and information. Please stay safe out there. Make it a great day. Thank you so much.